What's up, HOBY? This is Lamar Womble with Passion for Leadership, and I'm so excited to be a part of the HOBY conferences that are going on all over the country in every state in America, but a little bit different this time. And so this is a unique opportunity for me to be able to share my message to hopefully every single student in the HOBY Nation. I know myself, I was scheduled to speak at 5 different HOBYs this summer. So I know this is actually even a bigger opportunity to reach more young people, to give you all the ideas on passion, leadership, and belief that I have and that I want to be able to share with you all. So as I said, my name is Lamar Womble. I've been speaking around the country for the last 11 years. And so today I'm super excited because I am in the process of finishing up my first book called Legendary: How Any Student Can Become a Legendary Leader. And so from that, I've got 5 things, particularly 5 strategies around leadership that I want to be able to share with you today in this keynote. But before we get to those 5 strategies, we're going to start at the very top, right? And so let's get into this thing, because legendary leadership is really knowing thyself, right? It is learning about who you are, who you want to be, what you can do, what you can't do, and then what you want to do going forward once you know those things, right? So the realities of what the situation that you might be in now is that many of you are sophomores. You're coming to a leadership conference like HOBY probably for the first time. And if you were going to HOBY in person, it is a wild scene to kind of walk into the first time. There's a lot of energy, a lot of great people, and it can be overwhelming, right? And so the idea, you're like, well, what is this experience that I'm getting ready to get into? Why am I even here, right? And so somebody that you know, a counselor, a teacher, a staff member in your school, somebody saw something in you. Even if you don't identify yourself as a leader, somebody saw something in you that said, this student has it, or there's something that this student has that I think can be cultivated at HOBY. I want this student to go. And so one quote I want to share with you all from the beginning of this thing, because I really want you to use it as a guide for the rest of your life. And that quote is, exposure is the birthplace of possibility. And all that means is the more things that you have an opportunity to see in your life, the more opportunity that you have to do things and have new experiences, that is going to unlock the opportunity for you to go do whatever it is that you want to do. Because maybe at this conference, or maybe over the course of the next couple of days, as you listen to different speakers and listen to different workshops and work inside of your groups, you will learn things that you didn't know about. And what that does is that opens up a door for you to be able to go explore, learn, discover, and execute on things that you may want to in the future. And so I'll say it one more time. Exposure is the birthplace of possibility, right? And so legendary leadership, y'all, really starts with knowing thyself. So what is all included in knowing thyself? I like to call it as knowing what your values are. What are your values? Your values are the things that you hold true to yourself. What's the most important things in your life day to day, right? So for many of it, it's family, education, maybe it's competition in sports, maybe it's working, maybe you're a hard worker, maybe it's determination, maybe it's honesty when you have friendships, maybe one of your values is having really cool experiences. So maybe you're into traveling, or you want to do more traveling. So you really need to understand what are the things that are most important to you. Before you can lead anybody, you need to know who you are, right? Before you can lead anybody, you need to know who you are. And a big part of that is starting off by understanding what your values are. The next thing you need to start thinking about is doing and learning about what you're passionate about, right? So what are your passions? What are the things that you love to do? Because here's what finding passions do, is that you won't waste time doing things that you don't love, right? Now, what I said was exposure is the birthplace of possibility. You have to try things out in order to understand if you love them or if you don't love them, right? But once you find out that you do love them, that's when you want to spend more time doing that thing. And when you spend more time doing that thing, guess what happens next? You spend more time doing that thing, then you enter into those organizations, those clubs, those nonprofits, those volunteer opportunities, those jobs while you're in high school that you know that you love. And inside of that, then you can discuss about what it means to become a leader inside of that space. So you want to start discussing and discovering for yourself, what are the things that you are most passionate about? Last thing, you want to take an inventory of your skills and talents. Because the idea is that you want to spend time doing things that you're good at because it makes you feel good, but also you show up in a space and you show up in more power when you are constantly doing things that you're good at. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't learn how to do new things? Of course not. But what it means is that more than likely and naturally, you're going to lean into the things that you're good at. And so as you lean into those things, what can be the results of those things? What are the clubs and the organizations and the jobs and the opportunities that exist inside of your strengths and your talents and your natural skills, right? So the idea would be for you to start really understanding who you are through your values, know thyself through your skills and your talents, know thyself through your passions. And once you understand those three things, now it's time to go try things out. Going back to the quote that I gave you, exposure is the birthplace of possibility, right? So many of you may be wondering, well, why am I here? Why am I at this conference? And ideally, HOBY takes you through 3 sections of leadership. Self-leadership, group leadership, community leadership is the idea. And so in my experience of working with young people is leadership can be very heavy. And what I want to do for y'all is I want to demystify and take the weight off of leadership. And first just tell you it's a lot of it just knowing who you are, but then also knowing the second part of it is that leadership comes down to 2 things for me. And from my experience working with young people, but also studying young people as it pertains to leadership specifically and developing young student leaders, leadership comes down to these 2 things. It comes down to empathy and it comes down to execution, right? So these are the big 2. And what this is, ultimately what it means to me and for you all is that there's 5 things that I've started off at the very top that I want to share with you all that I believe that you can implement now. You don't have to be leading anyone or anything, but things that you can do if you are a part of a larger group, a team, a club, anything that you can start to implement that shows leadership skills and shows leadership ability, right? So the first thing is this, empathy. Leadership literally starts with empathy, which in turn then means leadership starts with people. If you want to lead people, people have to believe in you and people have to look to you for leadership, right? So you have to understand how people operate. You have to understand how people tick. You have to understand how to relate to people. It doesn't always mean that you're most talkative, because maybe that means you're a strong listener if you're not the most talkative, because strong listeners, people that would identify themselves as introverted, can also be equally as strong of leaders, right? And I know for myself, I spent a lot of time in high school not involved, right? I didn't really get involved until I was in college. And why I did that is because I didn't really know who I was in high school. And I think y'all have been exposed to so many different types of people and speakers. By this time, I think that you're starting to understand better who you are as you go into your sophomore year, right? Or come out of your sophomore year. You have a better idea than I probably did 20 years ago. And so what that allows you to do is to start taking an inventory of I'm only going to do the things that I love. And so leadership doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a title, but leadership means I am going to do the things that I love, and I need to figure out how I can have empathy and understand people better. And that's what I did when I was in college. I only did things that I actually wanted to do. I didn't do anything for a title because I knew that I discovered for myself I didn't want to be a leader in that regard. And so I want to redefine leadership as well for you all and say that, you know what? Not only is leadership only solely about people, but leadership doesn't have to be about a position or a title, right? Leadership can be about, I'm going to join this organization because I love doing this. And because of that, I can become a leader of people inside of this organization based on my passions, skills, and values, right? So let's hop into what it means to be empathetic, right? There's 3 points that I want to share with you around empathy that are very impactful that I think you should adopt ASAP, right? So the first thing is you must have a people philosophy. You must have a people philosophy. And what do I mean by that? All I mean by that is this. You need to have a plan for how you want to leave people when you meet them. If somebody you meet today and you never see them again for the rest of your life, right? You need to be able to leave impart your people philosophy on them. So how do you want to leave people by the time your life is over and people continuously think about you as a person? What do you want them to say? And so for me, my people philosophy is this. I want to help everyone feel welcome and comfortable in my presence so I can support them towards living a more passionate and happy life. And I keep this up in my house so I understand every single day what it is my goal to impact other human beings, right? So for you, what is your people philosophy? And what I recommend is you write it out, you put it up in your room, you keep it close to your heart, maybe keep it in your purse, keep it in your wallet, keep it in your locker, whatever it is, so that you can understand how you want to leave and impact people every single day. So you want to be empathetic, right? That's the first thing you have to do is start by having a people philosophy. The next thing is you want to be other-centered, right? So the opposite of other-centered is self-centered. So you want to be other-centered. And here's what this means. Because many of us believe, or you think, and I'm hopefully going to demystify that for you as well, is that you think that when you come into a leadership situation or you're a leadership position, that you are supposed to be served, right? That people are coming to you, right? And I think that's just a huge misconception. The leader is actually there to serve, right? So it is your job to make sure that everyone that is following you has everything that they need in order to be great. Right? And then what that means is that there's somebody above you, an advisor, a teacher, supporting you towards your greatness, a mentor supporting you towards your greatness. But your job is to develop all the people that follow you and put them in a position to be successful by giving them anything and everything they need in order to be successful. That's what it means to be other-centered and not self-centered, meaning that everyone should be serving you so you can elevate your name and your status, right? The last part of this, being empathetic, is inclusive language. If you want to lead people, y'all, you have to use inclusive language. And this is very simple, very easy strategy that you can implement today. All I'm saying to you is this. When you're working in groups, when you're working in teams, never, 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 never put yourself as an I, right? Never separate yourself as an I, because what happens is that you start to then actually separate yourself from the group. Whenever you address your team, if you're in an email, if you're in a meeting, I want you to use inclusive language. I want you to use inclusive language. Inclusive language is this: we, us, the team, the crew, the squad, the family, the group, everybody, right? That is what it means to use inclusive language. So when you're writing that email to the team and you're speaking about yourself, use we instead. And so it's a subtle change from I to we, but it's super inclusive. And what that allows for you to do is to constantly be talking about your team, even when you're talking about individuals. And then if you want to have an offline conversation one-to-one with somebody, that's how you do that. But doing it and addressing the team makes everyone feel included. And it makes the person that's the newest member to the person that's the oldest and most senior member that probably contributes also the most. Everyone feels like they're a part of it and that they can contribute to the team and also feel contributed to, right? So let's move over. Let's move over to execution, right? And there's two things that I want to share with you under execution. The first of is this, because to execute to me, all it really means is to get things done. It means to get things done. In order to get things done, you have to be creative. Now, when I talk about being creative and having creativity, I don't want to talk about, coming up with new ideas, and I don't want to talk about like someone's specific idea. I want to talk about the overall thought process of what it means to be creative and to have creativity. And working with lots of students in high school and in college, what happens is students get into a brainstorm, and you get in the middle of a brainstorm, and in the middle of that brainstorm, somebody comes up with an idea, and also in the middle of that brainstorm, somebody then shoots down that same idea in the middle of the brainstorm. The purpose of a brainstorm and the purpose of creativity is so you can get all the ideas on the table. So I want you to keep this in mind. When you are trying to execute, you need everyone to be creative, including yourself. You need everyone to be creative. You have to stop killing ideas in the middle of the creative process. Because when you kill someone's idea in the middle of a meeting or in front of everyone, you have now then just shut that person down to make them feel like they can't contribute for the rest of that time or the rest of that meeting or the rest of the time that they're in that organization. It goes back to here. Even as a member, if you're not the leader of something, you have to be other-centered. You have to be thinking about what this person is feeling. You have to be empathetic to how they feel before you shut them down, knowing that if you shut them down, that could be the last time that they share, because they feel like if they share going forward that they're going to be shut down. Creativity is super important to organizations and clubs and to individuals and the things that they want to accomplish, but you have to be willing to let all the ideas reign and let creativity reign in order to be able to look at everything, and then you narrow down from there, and then you have an opportunity to combine different ideas. So maybe this idea, you didn't really like it, this idea you really did like, but what if these two together turns into something that you never thought it could be? And that's where the magic is. And that's why if you want to be an executor, you got to be creative, and you got to have people on your team that have creativity. But more importantly, everyone has to be willing to let creativity happen before you start taking ideas off the table. The last thing I want to share with you, the fifth tip and strategy that I want to share with you around execution, and this is very simple and probably the most important, y'all. If you want to lead people, you have to be an executor. And more importantly, you have to be somebody that keeps your word. This is very simple, y'all. And this is probably one of the things that young people miss the mark on the most. Being an executor and keeping your word is when you say you were going to do something, do it. And I don't care if it's professional or unprofessional, or professional or personal. What I mean by that is, if you say that you are going to go on a trip next week, go on that trip, right? That's a personal example. If you say you're going to go buy a new skateboard tomorrow, go buy that new skateboard tomorrow. If you say you're going to send your project to your teacher by 6 p.m., make sure that email and that project is sent to your teacher by 6 p.m., right? Because what happens is when you stop keeping your word, you start to compromise the trust that people have in your ability to get things done. And the bottom line is, if you keep your word, even for the littlest of things, all the way to the most difficult of things, people are going to start to gain trust in you. And when you have trust, because you're an executor, right? And you know how to be empathetic to people's feelings, right? You understand what they're feeling and what they're going through by having a people philosophy, by being other-centered, by using inclusive language, and you know how to keep your word. I promise you, you have set for yourself the foundations of leadership. And none of this has anything to do with leading an organization, but can have everything to do with you just living your everyday life. And so when you want to be a legendary leader, in order to be a legendary leader, you have to make it practice in your everyday life. And if you do these 5 things, keep your word, let creativity reign, use inclusive language, be other-centered, have a people philosophy, empathy and execution, and knowing thyself, my friends, that is when you can become a legendary leader. And it can start when you're 16 years old. Thank you so much for having me. The book will be done at the end of the summer, and it will be coming out. What I will be able to get you all, though, is a workbook that is my skills frameworks for legendary leaders. Everyone's going to be able to get a copy of that online for you to be able to print out to yourself. So be looking out for that as well. And of course, if you want more free stuff, the easiest thing to do would be to complete an evaluation for me. And that you can go do that at Passion for Leadership, www.passionforleadership.com/survey. Passionforleadership.com/survey. Thank y'all so much.